Gone are the days when Russia, China, and other nations bullied by the West kept quiet, begging for a seat at the global table. Today, they are not just pulling away from the West, they are rewriting the table itself. At the BRICS 2025 summit in Rio de Janeiro, a declaration was signed that didn't just express disagreement, it declared war on the old Western world order. And yet, silence. No headlines, no debates, no coverage. Because what's inside that declaration doesn't just challenge Western policy, it undermines Western dominance itself. It shatters the myth of US-led morality. It rejects neoliberal economics. It calls for a new system built by the Global South for the Global South. So what was in that declaration? And why is the Western media pretending it never happened? In this video, let's pull the curtain back because the real world is changing fast, and they are terrified you will find out. The BRICS 2025 declaration did not begin with profits, trade routes, or investment numbers. It opened with something far more damning, a moral indictment. At a time when Western powers often justify their global dominance by claiming to uphold freedom, democracy, and human rights, BRICS flips the mirror. The first section of the declaration confronts Western hypocrisy head-on, and it does so by speaking the unspeakable, calling out Palestine and Syria as the litmus test of global justice. With remarkable clarity and unity, BRICS reaffirmed its full support for a sovereign Palestinian state, rooted in the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. This position directly challenges US and Israeli ambitions in the region. But the language goes deeper. It doesn't just acknowledge suffering. It condemns Israel's ongoing military operations in Gaza, demands an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, and insists on unhindered humanitarian aid. In doing so, BRICS does something that Western leaders dare not do. It labels forced displacement as illegal and openly supports the Palestinian right to self-determination. And this isn't just about Israel. It's about the West's complicity. It's a decades-long strategy of funding, shielding, and politically backing what BRICS now declares to be human rights violations. For the first time, the summit puts Washington and its allies on trial in the court of global opinion, not as bystanders, but as enablers of systemic injustice. And from Palestine, the declaration flows into Syria, revealing a broader critique of Western militarism. BRICS explicitly demands that Israel withdraw from Syrian territory, affirms Syria's sovereignty, and calls for a UN-led political solution, notably excluding US and Israeli interference. This is more than diplomacy. It's a strategic repositioning of international law, where BRICS stands as both critic and counterweight to the old order. And what's the underlying message? It's that the West has lost its moral legitimacy. Once claiming to be the champion of global ethics, it now stands accused by a coalition representing half the world's population. The mask of moral superiority is cracking when nations from Africa, Asia, and Latin America stand together and say, "You do not speak for the world." The very foundation of Western soft power begins to collapse. But morality isn't enough to destroy an empire. You also have to attack its money. That's exactly what BRICS does next. As the moral accusations land like a gavel on a courtroom bench, the declaration shifts from ethics to economics. And here, it sharpens its blade even further. BRICS launched a direct assault on the economic instruments of Western control, the very tools Washington has used to reward allies, punish rivals, and maintain its grip on the global financial system. The declaration condemns tariff wars, often disguised as national security measures. It calls out environmental protectionism, which the bloc says is being used as a pretext for suppressing competition. And it slams the use of unilateral sanctions, especially those not approved by the UN Security Council, as illegitimate and damaging to global equity. And this is not abstract language. It is a precise rebuke of the US economic playbook, one that President Donald Trump has proudly wielded in the name of America First. The very idea of using financial pressure as a geopolitical weapon is now being exposed and rejected at a global level. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. You should know that Trump's recent threat to impose 10% tariffs on any nation aligning with BRICS didn't scare the bloc. It validated their entire argument. The West, they say, has moved from being a global partner to becoming a financial bully. And like any bully, it lashes out not from strength, but from the fear of losing control. But BRICS doesn't merely criticize, it offers alternatives. The declaration outlines urgent plans to reform the World Trade Organization, expand the new development bank, and, most symbolically, create a SWIFT alternative, a new cross-border payment system that would allow trade and banking to continue without relying on the US dollar or Western-controlled institutions. This marks the beginning of de-dollarization, not as a slogan, but as a coordinated international project. And the consequences? Every time a country shifts a transaction out of the dollar, it chips away at the financial scaffolding holding up the American empire. Every time a developing nation takes a BRICS-backed loan instead of going to the IMF, it undercuts the West's ability to demand reforms, austerity, and obedience. This is not the collapse of the Western order by explosion, but by erosion. Not through bombs, but through banks. The very currency of Western power is now being drained from within. And for that, the world is now getting closer to BRICS. Whether Western allies or not, they have now expected that aligning with BRICS is the best strategy to survive. Therefore, BRICS is no longer just an acronym. It's a movement. What began as 5 countries seeking economic coordination has become a geopolitical alliance, and, increasingly, a counter-world order. Indonesia entered as a full member, marking the bloc's first step into Southeast Asia with a giant footprint. Alongside it came Nigeria, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cuba, Uganda, Belarus, Bolivia, and Uzbekistan, each added not to fill seats, but to strengthen BRICS's global relevance. And the selection wasn't accidental. These are nations with growing regional clout, resource wealth, youthful populations, and deep frustrations with the colonial hangover of Western dominance. In embracing these nations, BRICS wasn't adding names. It was assembling an alternative world map. And that map operates on a new philosophy: development without domination. Where the IMF demands austerity, BRICS offers infrastructure. Where the World Bank offers debt traps, BRICS lays railways and power plants. Where Washington preaches about democracy while dropping bombs, BRICS invests without preaching. It doesn't mean all members are saints. It means the relationship is symmetrical, not imperial. In Africa, leaders are watching this closely. Nigeria joining as a strategic partner sends a direct signal to Washington and London. Africa is not a playground for Western NGOs and military bases anymore. In Southeast Asia, Malaysia and Vietnam are balancing between US pressure and Chinese proximity. But their participation in BRICS marks a move towards strategic hedging, if not outright defection, from Western orbit. So what does the West have left? As BRICS expands, the West contracts, and its only remaining weapons are threats, tariffs, and sanctions. These aren't policies. They are panic reflexes, and the more they are used, the less effective they become. Once symbols of global authority, these tools now resemble the tantrums of a fading empire. But you wouldn't know that if you watched CNN or read the New York Times. Which brings us to one of the most revealing absences of all: the silence of Western media. Despite the sheer scope of the BRICS summit, spanning foreign policy, finance, and strategic realignment, it barely made a ripple in legacy Western outlets. No primetime panels, No editorial debates, no breathless analysis. Why? Because admitting the story means admitting the loss of control. You see, for decades, Western media has served not merely to inform, but to frame the narrative. Who gets labeled a dictator? Who is called a reformer? Whose violence is justifiable, and whose is extremism? The information war has always been one of the West's most powerful tools. But now, when half the planet stands united behind an anti-hegemonic declaration, the media chooses silence. It's not that they missed the story. It's that they can't tell it without confessing that the center of the world has shifted. Yet the silence hasn't stopped the conversation. In Jakarta's tea stalls, in Kampala's classrooms, in Sao Paulo's favelas, even within think tanks in DC and London, the whispers are growing louder on whether the Western order is collapsing already. The question itself is revolutionary. It implies that what once seemed eternal, the US dominance, European diplomacy, and Western liberalism, may now be ephemeral. And with this realization, the final blow lands. This summit, this declaration, wasn't just a policy platform. It was a funeral for Western hegemony, conducted not in rage, but in resolve. BRICS has now achieved what Western critics once mocked as impossible in the form of a coordinated moral position on Gaza and Syria that publicly rebukes US and Israeli policy, an economic plan that bypasses the dollar, undermines the IMF, and builds real, working alternatives. Furthermore, BRICS is presenting an expansion strategy that turns it into a continental alliance system, having Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Eurasia. And perhaps most revolutionary of all is the rejection of American-style leadership itself. No more messianic speeches, no more leader of the free world. That chapter is closed. The Cold War framework, built after World War II, enforced through NATO, financed by Wall Street, and narrated by Hollywood, is now outdated. And this summit was the first global event to bury it. Not with fireworks, but with frameworks. Not with parades, but with plans. Not with rhetoric, but with resistance. Because the real threat to the West is not China's rise or Russia's defiance. It's the realization by the global South that they don't need permission anymore. Sovereignty no longer requires a seat at Washington's table. Power no longer needs a dollar sign. Partnerships no longer come with a Western logo. Why do you think the Western media refuses to report on BRICS' full declaration? Do you believe the global South should unite to create new global systems? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on whether this declaration could be the true beginning of the end for Western hegemony. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, changing world order, and current affairs, things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.